Hi, I'm Shiv Gaglani, welcoming you to Raise the Line with Osmosis from Elsevier, an ongoing exploration about how to improve health and healthcare. We like to let our audience know about tools available to help them deliver the best care possible, and to that end, we're happy to welcome Dr. Bruno Lagoeiro to the program. He's the Executive Director for Digital Products designed for doctors and medical students at Afya, one of the largest medical education groups in Brazil. Its tools help medical students and practicing clinicians provide enhanced healthcare services across clinical decision-making, electronic health records, e-prescribing, telemedicine, and patient relationships. Bruno is the co-founder and former CEO of PebMed, which Afya acquired in 2020, whose Whitebook mobile app is used in tens of millions of patient encounters annually. I'd like to thank Ramez Mikdashi at Bertelsmann for the intro to Bruno. So Bruno, thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Shiv. Thank you for inviting me to be in the show. I'm really happy to represent here Brazil, doctors from Brazil, entrepreneurs, and everything else.
Yeah, no, we're very happy to have you on as well. And I've known Afya for some years. I'm very impressed with the traction you all have achieved. And your story is somewhat similar in that you started this when you were in med school. You started PebMed. So maybe for our audience who doesn't know your story, maybe you can just tell us what got you interested in medicine and then ultimately switching over to entrepreneurship.
Oh, great. I went to medical school 2007 here in Brazil, in a school called UFI, UFF. It's a federal university. It's something different from the US here in Brazil. The most popular schools are from the government. And during my medical school, I always had been interested in different things besides medicine, not just only the part of medicine that we see usually that being stimulated by the medical school. And during this medical school, I met some two guys, Pedro and Eduardo, that became my partners. And Pedro, he was my classmate, and he was exactly like me, really interested in other things. And in 2011, around 2011, 2012, he was a monitor of semiology for younger students. We were in the last year of medical school. And Pedro was a guy really interested in technology. He uses to have in 2012 the iPhone 3. That's something rare in Brazil back that time. Smartphones were getting popular in those years. Pedro noticed that the younger students were taking to the bedside of the patient some notes, some books, some papers that wasn't really nice for that patients to have those things around there. And he was looking to the smartphone and saw a lot of apps of medicine, most from the US, not Brazilian apps. And he started thinking how he could put those information that the students bring to the bedside inside the smartphone. So he just started to study about how to create a simple app in 2012. And so he went to YouTube, these kind of things, and started to learn by himself. And he created a simple, very simple app, like an ebook, almost like an ebook. And he gave to the students, for the semiology students. And there were something around 70 students, but after like a month, there were like downloads, something like this. And Pedro got really surprised because he did it, making marketing for the students and everything. And he decided to put a price on the app because before that it was for free for the students. And he put like for $1, and people continue to download this, like $2 continues to download this, $4. And he noticed there were some demand about apps here in Brazil for doctors, for medical students with information. So he called me and said, Bruno, do you want to create apps? There was something really strange for a medical student in the last year of college, of course. But I said yes because I was a partner of Pedro. We went to different places, made articles. We made internship in the US, in Texas, and let's go. Let's make some apps. And we started to create apps, and we met Eduardo, our other partner. He was also a classmate, but he went to different classes than us, and he was like a note master. He was the guy who created the notes, the things that were the students from USF used to study. And we thought like we should ask for Eduardo give their notes so we can put inside the apps because he's the note master. And we started to create apps in the last year of our medical school. And from 2012 until 2015, we finished the medical school in 2012, and then we went to the residence, went to internal medicine residence. So it was really crazy times. We were creating apps like during night shifts, during Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like weekends a lot. We spend our times on this. Our girlfriends were going crazy back that time. We started to create we created something like around 20, 25 apps during that time between 2012 and 2015. It wasn't really a company, but we were creating something for ourselves, like young doctors. We created apps for decision making on ICU, for studying electrocardiogram, for making decisions for emergency. So basically, we were like three young doctors in residence that saw some problems. So we need to create an app for this with information for making decisions. And that's how we started PadMed.
Wow, that's awesome. A lot of obvious parallels to what we did at Osmosis, but also internationally, we've had some friends like Siebert Weiss at Amboss on the podcast talking about him and his colleagues in German medical schools developing Amboss. And so it's pretty cool to see, kind of this convergent evolution across different countries. But there are regional differences clearly. And I'd love to get your take on, before we go more into PebMed and Afya, your take on the Brazilian medical education system and, you went through it. You've built products that are used by hundreds of thousands of physicians across Brazil and Latin America. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the Brazilian healthcare system in your opinion?
Medical school in Brazil is focused on the healthcare characteristics of Brazilian system. So we have here public health really strong. So Brazil has 200 million people, and I believe that 150 million people totally depends of public health system, and 50 million people is using like the private, has some opportunity to access this. So of course there is some difference in between those numbers, because you can make people change from a part from another. But the big point is we have a lot of poor people here, and we have a huge country with huge difference between the cities and the states and other characteristics from culture besides one state to another. And that's really important for the medical school, because you have to learn like how we make the medicine of top class decisions for patients with the best tools for diagnosis and treatments. And we have access to this because we have great hospitals in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro. So the big cities, the rich cities of Brazil have like top hospitals that are almost the same level from the US, for example. But also you need to learn how you're going to give the assistance for the more poor people. So the basic assistance for them and other solutions for them. So we spent 6 years in medical school. There we go through the basic learning to the start to learn about the disease and the pathologies, about the clinics. And then we have the 2 last years focus on an internship where you get the practice. Stuff that I really noticed that were different from the US, for example, in the medical school, is that Brazilian doctors usually get graduate more ready to go to the practice. So during the school, we go a lot to the internships. We make a lot of procedures, start to learn how we're going to make some procedures, and do it by ourselves. We start to see some patients with other staff. And then we go to the residence. We are already ready to get the patients and to go to the practice and go to this scenario where we have no choice and we have to face in this. And that's why when we created our products, focus on decision making was so important for Brazilian young doctors. Because in truth, one day you are sleeping, you're a medical student, and the other day we have like the permission to work in a hospital. So we go to a specific zone with an emergency room department, and you have all the kids in front of you, and you have to start to work with that and be the best doctor as possible. We have great schools. We are focused in Brazil to bring more doctors because we have a need of more doctors in Brazil. We have a lot of programs from the government stimulating doctors to come to Brazil. And we have some concentration, of course, of the doctors in the big cities. And when you look to the big cities, the capitals of the states, we have all the specialties, a lot of doctors, first world class of attention for patients. When you go to the countryside, to remote areas, for example, the middle of Amazon, or something like in the middle of northeast of Brazil, a really poor region, we have some necessity of more doctors. And the hard thing about this is that how we stimulate a young doctor, so like a top quality professional with a lot of study on this, sometimes with some debt about the college, to move from like the big city to the countryside. So the government's trying to be more provocative about this, to create some programs to make those people to access that parts. And also with the telemedicine becoming more common here, the pandemic already make this really popular here in Brazil. Telemedicine, we have a lot of people working with this. I think we got more access for people from other parts to those doctors as well. So I think that's the difference, the characteristics of Brazilian medical schools and how healthcare system is created.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's a lot of commonalities as well, including the focus on how do you get clinicians, many of whom, come from the cities, because that's where a lot of the educational systems are, to get into these schools, to go into these rural areas and then stay there. And that's a big challenge here in the US. And just literally this week, I gave a talk we work with several med schools in Thailand, and the Thai government is trying to do the same thing. So I think, again, it's one of those consistent themes across the global healthcare system. So take us back to 2015. From 2015 to 2020, you grew PebMed, and you had this collection of apps, including the Whiteboard app, which I'd love for you to talk a bit more about. What were some of the highlights of that period, that 5-year period, and then since becoming part of Afya, can you talk us through like the last several years?
Okay, so I was talking with you, between 2012 and 2015, we started the company and we started to develop different apps. So it was crazy times. We were creating apps by our thoughts, no methodology. We were like just young doctors, make the residents, they making night shifts and try to create something that were good for us. And in truth, those 25 apps that we created, 5 of them were really good and really popular. We sell a lot. 10 of them were like, okay, somebody will buy for it. And 10 of them, I believe that even for free, nobody wants that. So there were like no methodology, so we created by ourselves what we need. In 2014, just right before 2015, 2014, we met a guy in a startup competition in Brazil. So startup scenario in Brazil is some years late than the US. So it's more immature in 2014 here in Brazil than the US. And that time there were not too much doctors creating companies or creating startups, something like this. So we went to this competition, the startup competition, just to see how it's gonna be. We didn't have any intention. We just want to be doctors. I want to be a cardiologist back that time. And we met a guy that became a mentor for us. His name is Rafael. He got really impressed to see 3 doctors in a startup competition showing some products. And that products, they had some traction. The products were growing and make sense. And the doctors were just giving a part of their time on this. And Rafael became a mentor, started to help us. He's an engineer, so he's thinking different from a doctor. And he started helping us to get some more methodology in the company. And Rafael started to keep saying us like, you guys should take a break in medicine and give like a sabbatical time, full time on the company, dedicating on the company full time. You should do this. And we just left back that time because for us, just it was like more a hobby than a company. And he just keeps saying this, and he introduced us to an acceleration program called the 21212. 21212 was an accelerator that existed here in Brazil with partners from Rio de Janeiro. That's 21 phone number. And 212 partners from New York. That's the phone number from New York. And we went to this accelerator, and it was really, really interesting because we went to the first meeting like giving no belief that we would do the acceleration programs. And after one talk, we got like, oh, there is something there. People want to see us here. Let's try that. So we finished internal medicine residence in the beginning of 2015 in March, and we went to the acceleration program. And it was the turning point of PedMed. Because when we got in the acceleration program, we started to meet people from design, from computer, from engineering software, from legal parts and financial, and start to have some methodology of developing products. And the first thing that we noticed that it should do was to kill all the 25 apps and create a new product. And we went to interview those users, like we interviewed something around 100 users, and we started to learn what was the best things, what was the pain that we were solving with those 25 apps. And we took the best parts of those 25 apps and put some sauce, some more sauce on this, some add something more, and we created the Whitebook. And we launched Whitebook in October of 2015, and it became really success because Whitebook was a complete decision make app with more than 10,000 topics for making decisions on the backside with text, with videos, with calculators, with algorithms for decision. And we make a change, important change back that time as well of the business model because it was one-time fee business model before 2015. And that was really hard to escalate to make the scaling of the company, and we changed it for subscription. We were really lucky with this timing change because in 2015 was the time when Netflix, Spotify, those guys were coming to Brazil. So people started to learn they should pay for a subscription for an app, for example, to get more content for access those apps. And the company started to grow from 2015 when we launched Whitebook. In 2016, we launched a website called Portal PubMed. In the beginning, it was just like a blog for make content market for Whitebook, but really fast it became a product as well. It was an update site with information for doctors, with guidelines, news, things that were for interest for doctors. And in 2018, we launched Nursebook, the version of Whitebook for nurses. And with these three products, the company grew a lot. We never get back to the traditional medicine, if I can say so. We keep it in our sabbatical year since 2015 until now. And it's really hard to have to explain every year to our mothers. And right now, they understand, of course, and just kidding. And it was really hard because during this time, if you can remember, I think that's difference from your story. For example, Shiv, we finished the medical school, went to residence, we worked as a doctor. I worked in different hospitals in Brazil. And it was like a huge dilemma. Should I leave the medicine, the traditional medicine, the assistance, to see the patient, to this new thing as an entrepreneur? But in truth, in fact, how I learned about this is that I still being a doctor. I was just a different doctor. I was helping thousands of doctors in Brazil. So today, for example, Whitebook is used by 200,000 doctors in Brazil. We have in Brazil 100,000 doctors and medical schools, and 200,000 use it every month. And last year, we reached 30 million gifted patients through doctors who make decisions using Whitebook. So I even couldn't imagine if I can see 30 million different patients. So I'm still thinking that I'm a doctor. I'm just a digital doctor doing different things and helping those guys how they make better decisions. And it's really a pleasure because we received a lot of stories, guys from different remote parts that were like in different situations, and they just need to make a decision for their patient. They don't have all the tools because, as I said, we have a lot of different scenarios working as a doctor in Brazil, and they just access Whitebook and they have like ideas for it. They have better decisions. So I'm really happy to be part of this transformation of medicine in Brazil.
Yeah, congratulations. It's an incredible journey and legacy, really, regardless of, what you do next. People are still going to be using Whitebook and you're going to be helping millions of patients indirectly and likely directly again in the future. And so many shared lessons as you were talking about the importance of a mentor who helps kind of show you the ropes as you try professionalizing your side project, the importance of talking to your users and understanding what features to kill or apps to kill and what features to keep and grow, expansion into other areas beyond medicine, into nursing, into, patient facing material, et cetera. So tons of shared stories that our listeners will have heard bits and pieces of from the Osmosis story, but also from, my friend who runs MD Calc, Joe Habush, I think has very similar sort of built-in app with all these clinical decision tools for the US market. What are some of the lessons you'd want to give our listeners, many of whom are currently in school, or maybe they're also doctors or nurses who are trying to be entrepreneurs as well? Like, what are some of your key take-home lessons for them?
That's a great question. And I can say that I love to answer that question because I give a lot of talks to medical students, to physicians. They always invite me because they love Whitebook. Whitebook is really popular here. And they really love to hear from me how it was, what they should do, and how they can explore this new thing as being a tech entrepreneur and education entrepreneur. And I usually say that we see a lot of opportunities as a doctor, as a medical student. We just don't give the right attention on this. The first lesson that I want to give it to you is that every day you have a pain to solve in your work. You can see that. It's a small thing that you sometimes just let it go or just think, oh, it's done that way. But in truth, as a doctor, as a medical student, as a healthcare professional, we know what the bad things of the healthcare system. We live this. We better than us. There is nobody. When you talk to an engineer that is creating a health tech, they usually have some idea how we're gonna make this solution. But we have like the experience of being on this, and that was the difference of my story. Just remember, we started this as a monitor project. And then we start to create apps for residents, for young doctors. And then we keep evaluating this as we work doctors and bring doctors to our company to share their problems, how we're going to make decisions. So the first advice is give attention for the small problems that you see in your life, the small problems that you see in your hospital, in your daily learning in the medical school. Probably the story of shit have the similarity of this. It just give you attention for a small problem of learning. So that's how we created those osmosis. That's the first lesson. The second lesson for me is that being entrepreneur is not for everybody. It's a hard one. I know this. It's sometimes not popular because people want to hear that everybody can be a huge entrepreneur with success. That's a lie. It's really hard. It's really, really hard to be an entrepreneur. That I'm not saying that you can't be this. If you really want, you have to know you have a price to pay for this. It's gonna be hard. It's not gonna work from the first time. I really see myself as an exception. I'm really lucky about this. I'm really lucky because in truth, I have a lot of friends, good entrepreneurs, even companies that invested that didn't work, that went to failure, and that is normal. So you have to know the price that you're gonna pay to be an entrepreneur. And that's in truth, it's a good place to be an entrepreneur because you usually think about this tech entrepreneur, this Mark Zuckerbergs and everything else, but you can make a be entrepreneur in medicine in many forms. You already gonna be an entrepreneur for your life as a doctor. So you have to give attention to your career as a doctor to create the right path. You can create companies on the most traditional ways, or you can make disruption. But in truth, to start your company, you have to that knowledge that it's gonna be hard. And the third lesson for me, the greatest one, is to give attention to other things. It's really common when you go to the medical school, you just go to like a line where you have to follow this. Everybody's doing that. Our veteran is doing that, so I need to do this. We have a lot of dogmas around being a doctor, like you should do this. If you don't do that, you're gonna be like the worst doctor of the world. That's a lie. You should give attention for other things. You have to have different interests. You have to start to be interested in tech. You have to be interested in culture things, in music, in arts. If you start to study financial things, it's going to help you a lot. So be open-minded about this. Be open-minded. Start to learn new things. Give attention to other things that you'll be pleasurable. It's probably going to learn things from different areas, and you're going to bring this to medicine because medicine, in the most important aspect, is a human science. So it's all about human. So when you talk about financial, when you talk about great technology, when you talk about laws, that's all the things that support the human being. But medicine is like the essence of this, is like the soul of this. So you have to bring the other things to medicine. So that's the best way that you're going to solve the problems of medicine. You're going to change this.
That's amazing advice. Really, really helpful. I think hopefully we can get some snippets of that out to our learners because, everything from making, really noticing problems, because I agree, like many of my classmates and people in general are so burned out by the studying or the practice of medicine that they get these frustrations and they take it as this is the way it's always been, this is the way it always needs to be, as opposed to maybe diving a little deeper and saying, why does it have to be this way? And maybe that question can be very dangerous because that could be the next 5 years of your life or 10 years even, but it can also be very fulfilling as both you and I have experienced. And the second, the last piece of advice that you shared that I think is amazing is the creativity and innovation I think do come from combining things from different fields. So an engineer, who studied 10, 20 years as an engineer and then goes to medicine is able to combine those two expertise areas. And that's where innovation comes from. And they develop a prosthetic or a brain computer interface, whatever it may be. So that's wonderful advice. And I want to be respectful of your time. So I only had two or three other questions. The first is just, how do you think about AI? We've obviously been doing a lot to cover AI over the past several months. We had the chief data scientist at Stanford, the chief clinical officer at Google, and people like Eric Topol on the podcast. How are you thinking about AI, both as a physician entrepreneur, but also specifically for Whitebook or Afya in general?
Great. AI is I, I, I hope that's not going to be just a hype. Of course, it's something more solid and have been studying for decades in truth. But right now, I think it's getting more easier to us to see this working with the Gen AI, the tool that we're launching the last 1 year. And I think medicine won't be different from other sectors. Maybe the difference is that when you are launching something disruptive in medicine, you always have to be really careful about the other people's lives. And these are a really important aspects. And we think that we doctors and healthcare professionals have this knowledge from the medical school. So when I think about AI and medicine and decision making, I think about the super doctor. That's how I define it. I really believe that that AI is not going to take the doctor's place. I don't see that scenario where you just talk with an AI as a patient and the AI make all the decisions for you, how it's going to be your treatment, it's going to make a surgery or something like this. But I see the doctors working in a better way using the AI. So I really believe that AI is going to help doctors to organize more the information, to catch the information with more completion, with more details. I really see the AI helping doctors to create the different diagnoses with more information that usually we can process in our clinical decision models. I see the AI empower the doctors to be better doctors. And when the doctors get empowered by AI, in my perspective, they have more time to spend in what we believe that doctors should do. That's the connection with their patient, the connection with their families, the human aspect of the medicine. So you just said like the doctors are getting burnout. The doctors always question themselves about should I be doing this? I made the right choice. And we are really pressured to make choices when we are young, choices that are going to change our life for the next 40 years. And I think part of this just because we have spent a lot of time in the wrong things. We don't spend time in the good things of medicine. We don't spend time in understanding the disease and spend time with the patient explaining about this and giving some thoughts, the right thoughts for the patients. We spend time like doing bureaucracy. We spend time with the annoying parts of medicine. And that's take out the bright side of medicine. That's lost the purpose, why we choose to be doctors. And that's what Brazilian doctors, American doctors are getting right now. The doctors got a long time of working. They spend a lot of time in the hospitals, but they spend a lot of time in the hospitals doing the wrong thing. So I believe that transformations come to make an easier flow for doctors to give them attention for their patients. And we are starting to using this right now in Whitebook in Afya, focus on how we're going to make decision making more easier. We really believe in this aspect that we call how we're going to make a superpower tool for the doctors so can make decisions with better learning from the AI, with the information that they provide for the AI, and with more assertivity about how we're going to make decisions for their patients. And with this scenario, I really believe that we can give more access for the right treatments. We can make predictions about when it's gonna happen new pandemics, for example. So I really believe that when we're gonna mix the AI with the decision maker, we're gonna start to process some data to make the medicine more, how can I say this, make medicine more closer to make decisions before the things happen.
Yeah, no, being a little more proactive, as Peter Attia talks about medicine 3.0, where we're able to use this big data not just to understand conditions, but to proactively intervene before they become harder to treat, so more preventable. That's awesome. I'm glad. I also share your optimism for how AI can make the job of being a clinician easier. And ultimately, what's most important is the patient outcomes, right? The outcomes of our public health. Let's see, last two questions. General advice for our audience, right? Not all of our audience want to become entrepreneurs or go into tech or education. What general advice would you give to them about approaching their careers as clinicians or careers in general?
Most of things that I learned were during the hard times. I have a success story. I started a company. It got a really good product that became famous, and I were acquired in 2020 by Afya. It was great. I become executive of a huge company. But when I look back, the important things I learned during the hard times, during the times where I thought that everything were going wrong, and I had a lot of sympathy about these reflections, about taking a look about this. So the first thing is to this generation being more resilient about the hard times, resilient about the things, and start to learn that the things take their time to be good. And some things that usually don't go well have to just be patient about waiting for the next time and be really open-minded, as I said before, to make different choices or to move, to quit things and to change things. So just remember, we created 25 apps, and probably when it got to the 21, 22, we were totally decided that it was the best decision. And when they started to ask us to kill the apps and to focus in a new thing, we got really terrified about this. But it was the right decision because we have to make a change our life, make a pivot on this. The same when I decided to give a time on the traditional medicine, on the assistance to the patients, to dedicating myself full time for them. And I really think that we should be really, really open to these provocations that we got from mentors, for older people, from people that have been passing for difficult times. And we have to be open to change ourselves. That's the biggest advice that I can do.
That's awesome advice. Very aligned with Stoicism, which we talk a lot about on this podcast, that the obstacle is the way, as Ryan Holiday wrote about in his book. And just being grateful for the challenges, the frustrations, because the wiser version of you realizes that it was those hard times, as you've said, that contributed most to your personal and professional growth. Last question. Anything else you want to share with our audience before we let you go for the rest of your day?
I think there is a lot of things to transform in medicine. We talked about AI, we talked about the challenge to be an entrepreneur, to make the change in the healthcare system, and about how medical students can become entrepreneurs as well. I just want to give the advice that we should learn about how we're gonna drive ourselves and how we're gonna drive our life. It's really bad to see some friends, some people that I really love, sometimes complaining about their decisions in the past and their present, like it's something that can't be changed, and that's not a truth. So being a doctor is a really good thing. Helping people, it's a really good thing, and the life is something that you can change every time, that you can make another decision and starting again. That's a privilege that we have as a human being, as a young doctor. And I think that you guys that are hearing that should always be questioning yourselves if I'm feeling just comfortable where I am, if I'm really happy, because that everything is gonna be really fast in our lives, and when you look back, we shouldn't be regrets about our decisions. So just take a look at what you're doing. Just take a look why you became a doctor, why you became a professional, and start to thinking that it's never late to make different decisions. You're talking about stoicism and how you're gonna live, how you're gonna let the things working in us. We have all the power to make the changes and to make decisions and deciding how it's gonna affect us. So just giving attention for this. Don't let the life just pass through you, and make the choice that's gonna make you happy. When you got to like 80 years old, you're gonna say, "Oh, that's the life that I want to live."
That's awesome, Bruno. Well, I really appreciate not just your thoughts on medical education and healthcare in Brazil, but frankly, more importantly, the philosophical components of trying to, be the best human, be the best physician, be the best entrepreneur you can be. So I really want to congratulate you on everything you've achieved with PetBed and Afya. Very excited to see what you do next, if there's another chapter in you for entrepreneurship, and looking forward to hopefully meeting one day in person.
Great. It was great to participate from your podcast. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. Thanks again.
And with that, I'm Shiv Gaglani. Thank you to our audience for checking out today's show. And remember to do your part to raise the line and strengthen our healthcare system. We're all in this together. Take care.
If you like this podcast, please share it on your social channels. You can also subscribe to the series and check out all of our episodes at osmosis.org/raisethelines podcast.